during the month of January 2007, two men by the names of Sean Stevens and Peter Berdovsky, better known as Zebra, took to the streets of Boston to place these LED displays of two characters named Ignignokt and from the Adult Swim show Aqua Teen Hunger Force. This was a marketing campaign for the show's upcoming film, Aqua Teen Hunger Force: movie film for theatres. However, what the pair were likely not expecting was for the situation to transpire and turn into one of the biggest bomb scares of the year, if not the decade. This is the story of the 2007 Boston Mooninite bomb scare. Adult Swim is a late-night programming block on Cartoon Network that debuted on the 2nd of September 2001, with a couple of original shows. These included C-Lab 2021, Space Ghost Coast to Coast, Home Movies, and Harvey Birdman Attorney at Law. One of the block's original programs was an odd show titled Aqua Teen Hunger Force. The trio of characters that are prominently featured in the show originally debuted on an episode of Space Ghost Coast to Coast, but did not debut on the block with their own show until a week later on the 9th of September. However, they originally debuted on a special programming block on Cartoon Network in December of 2000, which was likely a test to see how popular a concept such as Adult Swim could be. The show ended up lasting for 11 seasons spanning 15 years. On the 14th of October 2001, approximately a month after the show's premiere on Adult Swim, the fourth episode of the first season was broadcast for the first time, and it contained two new characters, Ignignokt and These two characters form the Mooninites, who are, if you couldn't tell, an important part of the story. They have only appeared in 19 episodes of the show, yet they are loved by a large number of people in the Aqua Teen Hunger Force community. The pair are known for their consistent use of the middle finger, which will be very obvious quite soon. In 2005, it was teased that there would be an Aqua Teen Hunger Force movie coming in December of 2006. However, the film would not be released until the 10th of April of the following year. But in between the planned release date and the actual release date, Adult Swim engaged in a guerrilla marketing strategy that went very wrong. Before we begin this chapter, we must first discuss the man known as Zebra. Peter Berdovsky, better known as Zebra, is a visual artist from Belarus who founded a company called Zebra Studios that provides art projects for different events. In November of 2006, Zebra met a man from a marketing organisation called Interference Inc., who have had clients in the past such as HBO. This man asked Zebra as to whether he wanted to be involved in a marketing campaign for an upcoming Adult Swim movie, and he agreed. Zebra also enlisted the help of a man named Sean Stevens. The pair, along with a woman named Dana Seaver, initiated what would be known as Boston Mission 1 in mid-January of 2007. As part of the mission, approximately 20 of the aforementioned LED displays were placed into random locations across a few states. They did a similar thing during the night of the 29th of January, where 18 LED displays were placed into position. This was dubbed Boston Mission 2. However, on the 31st of January at 8:05 AM, something would not go to plan. On this fateful day, at this fateful time, a passenger on one of Boston's many trains spotted one of the devices placed on a stanchion, which is a structure that holds signs for the road. This stanchion was on an elevated part of Interstate 93. Obviously concerned with the device's possible capabilities, the passenger reported this to a policeman who was working as part of the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority, or MBTA. Now, this part of the story may raise the question as to why this individual would be concerned with such a device. In order to answer this, we must first touch on 9/11.
What kind of plane we're talking about, or at least what size? If we're talking about one that would hold, say, 100 people, one that would hold 300 people, from what you see, we'll have to back the tape up further than that, guys. Here we go.
Very hard to get a perspective on it. I don't know how far away we are at this, but that looks to me like it could be certainly a passenger jet.
The now infamous terrorist attack was the first step in the USA's War on Terror. In 2002, as part of the war, the Metropolitan Transport Authority, also known as the MTA, introduced a new campaign with a slogan to boot: "If you see something, say something." This slogan appeared to work, as reports of suspicious items rose drastically following its introduction. To this day, the MTA still holds the trademark for the phrase. This is likely the main reason behind the reporting. Unfortunately, this cannot be confirmed, but the timeline of events seems to match up. Approximately an hour after the initial reporting of the bomb, the MBTA notified the bomb squad of the Boston Police Department about the sightings. This led to what was described by the Boston Globe as, quote, "an army of emergency vehicles." It seemed as though the police were taking this threat incredibly seriously. Oddly enough, one of the people at the scene was none other than Zebler himself, but he did not attempt to explain the situation to the police, as he was told to refrain from this by Interference Inc. Around the same time, the bomb squad used an explosive with water inside of it to destroy the device that was placed on the stanchion. They also chose to close the northern side of Interstate 93 at about 9 AM, but it reopened to traffic an hour later. This was because the police had realised something crucial. It was simply a hoax device. All they had to do now was figure out who planted it. Soon after this deduction had been made, new information began to come out that helped with the police's investigation. For example, at 12:54 PM, a new device was spotted and reported at the intersection of Stewart Street and Charles Street. This was soon followed by two more devices being discovered underneath the Longfellow and Boston University bridges, both of which were closed as a safety measure. Soon after this, an email was sent out by Zebler to his friends, which informed them that he had been told to keep everything about the scare on the down low by Interference Inc. One of Zebler's friends, Travis Vortor, said, "We received an email in the early afternoon from Peter that asked the community that he's a part of to keep any information we had on the down low, and that was instructed to him by whoever his boss was in this advertising campaign gone wrong. I don't know if it was for security reasons, or it was to buy them some time, or to buy Peter some time." After a few hours of further analysation from the police, they concluded that these devices were part of a publicity stunt and posed no real danger to the city. Both Zebler and Stevens were arrested for their involvement in the stunt, under charges of violating Chapter 266, Section 102A and a half of the General Laws of Massachusetts, which says that it's illegal to display hoax devices with the intent to scare citizens. These charges were later dropped. At 4:30 PM, Turner Broadcasting, the owners of Adult Swim, issued a statement regarding the event, which read in part, "We apologise to the citizens of Boston that part of a marketing campaign was mistaken for a public danger. We appreciate the gravity of the situation and, like any responsible company would, are putting all necessary resources toward understanding the facts surrounding it as quickly as possible. As soon as we realised that an element of the campaign was being mistaken for something potentially dangerous, appropriate law enforcement officials were notified, and through federal law enforcement channels, we identified the specific locations of the advertisements in all 10 cities in which they are posted." Let's now take a look at how else Turner Broadcasting, Cartoon Network, and Adult Swim responded to the incident, as well as how that movie I mentioned earlier in the video did. Let's start by talking about Turner. A few days after the scare on the 5th of February 2007, Turner, as well as Interference Inc., ended up paying $2 million overall in damages. $1 million went to the Boston Police Department, and the other $1 million went to the Department of Homeland Security. Cartoon Network's response was more surprising. 4 days after Turner's response, Jim Samples, the executive vice president of the network, chose to resign. His successor, Stuart Snyder, began what is now considered as the dark age of Cartoon Network, when a lot of poorly received shows began airing. However, Adult Swim's response was the most intriguing. A year after the scare, episode 69 of Aqua Teen Hunger Force, simply titled Boston, was intended to be the creators' response to the incident and the premiere of Season 5, but this episode was never broadcast due to a possible increase in controversy. The unfinished episode was illegally leaked online in 2015. The co-creator of the show, Matt Maiellaro, has said that Boston is his favourite episode of the show. Finally, the film that the marketing strategy was attempting to promote in the first place was a moderate success, generating $5.5 million on a $750,000 budget. But what did the public have to say about the incident? Well, a lot. As soon as the investigation of the devices concluded, it was almost inevitable that there would be some sort of backlash involving the incident. So let's take a look at some of the more noteworthy responses. The Los Angeles Times' report criticised the assumption that the devices were bombs, saying, "Now we know what it takes to bring the city of Boston to its knees. A bunch of light brights, some batteries, and a couple of weeks for the citizenry to notice them." The slender, placemat-sized items had dozens of coloured lights, exposed wires and circuitry, and were powered by a row of D batteries wrapped in black tape. In other words, they looked like an upscale version of Hasbro's Light Bright, a toy for artistic grade schoolers. In response to Tom Menino, the mayor of Boston, mentioning 9/11 in relation to the incident, two slogans were created that showed the ridiculousness of the whole ordeal. 13107, Never Forget, and Free Peter. According to the editor of Make magazine, Philip Tyrone, the advertisers should have used better judgment, likely in terms of the proximity to 9/11, but noted that the boards were a neat electronic project. Entertainment Weekly called Zebler and Stevens brainiacs in an obviously sarcastic tone. A comic from the web series Something Positive was released the day after the incident. Here is a dubbing of the comic by me and BB4Live7.
You look mad. What's on the news that's bugging you?
Two guys got arrested for a guerrilla marketing campaign promoting the Aqua Teen Hunger Force movie. They hung a bunch of little lights all over the city that looked like characters from the TV show. Even though they looked more like toys, someone decided the devices were bombs. Since then, the two guys hired to hang the devices were charged with felonies, and the city's officials are using "in the wake of 9/11" as a battle cry for all this stupidity. Do you know how angering it is to watch the man with the articulation of a Hanna-Barbera cartoon character compare the World Trade Center bombing to toys being hung around the city?
Think of it this way, hon. If there's ever a threat, at least we know Boston will respond quickly.
Oh sure, we're safe from light brights, but what'll happen when the Lego people of Connected try to attack? A retail manager named Tracy O'Connor said that the police's response was silly and insane, as well as calling Boston a laughingstock. A month after the incident, the Boston police detonated a traffic counter that was chained to a light post, suspecting it was a bomb. In response, some people began placing stickers saying, "This is not a bomb," on objects such as traffic cones, parking meters, cash machines, and more. And that's about everything that's noteworthy enough to get mentioned by me. It's time to conclude. The 2007 Mooninite bomb scare was a fiasco like no other. It began as a simple marketing campaign that was only meant to promote the Aqua Teen Hunger Force movie, and ended as a scandal that would go down in Adult Swim history. In my opinion, it was certainly the fault of the police for not realising that the devices were simply LEDs and not bombs, but I personally don't blame the initial reporter of the bomb for their actions. They may have just been acting in good faith and were scared of the possibility of another 9/11. Overall, the 2007 bomb scare of Boston is a tale of guerrilla marketing gone wrong, police ignorance, and media outrage. And this tale also raises the question of what would happen if there was a real bomb that threatened the lives of many people. Well, 6 years after the Mooninites, there was.